Welcome back. As we earlier said, as we're gearing up for the COP27 that is expected on the 7th of November, inshallah, in the Red Sea Resort of Sharm el-Sheikh, or the Green City. Of course, we have with us live over the phone Dr. Mustafa Tammam, our economic analyst. Good morning, Dr. Tammam.
Good morning.
How are you doing, sir? But first of all, we need to talk about or explain to our viewers the meaning of green economy and how could it be affected in light of all the precautions that were taken to be able to stand to the changes of to the challenges of climate change.
Well, the green economy really depends on using
renewable energy,
which cause a lot of pollution to the climate. For example, you see the atomic energy now, which Egypt now is going through in order to use the energy, the atomic energy, in order to create to depend on the energy more than the normal aspects. Actually, like the petroleum, the normal one, which is the petroleum one, which caused a lot of pollution. On the other side, if we look at the gas projects, you see now a lot of the government now is encouraging gas projects and encouraging people to transfer their motor cars to use the gas instead of oil. Also, another important aspect is having the electric cars, cars which are using the fuel, or using electricity instead of fuel. See, so all these factors certainly are taken into consideration in order to reduce the pollution which is caused by using the traditional material in fuel, you see, specifically.
Right. Also, we need to know or elaborate more about the best examples for green economy. Green economy is now one of the conditions to be able to imply or try to effect a life that is free from all the hazardous substances, and also to take heed not to harm the environment, and to learn lessons from what happened in Australia and what happened in the wildfires in California, and what's happening in South Africa, and all the things that usually happen because of the economic greed of some countries. So if you'd like to elaborate over that.
Well, certainly this is a very important point, you see, because unfortunately the world, the community didn't take this matter very seriously. So as you just mentioned now, we had a lot of problems. You see the fires that you mentioned, the water that evaporated and made all caused lots of problems in certain countries. However, now the importance of this is certainly to try to reduce the pollution that is taking place now worldwide, and which causes a lot of problems. On the other side, also it's important that there should be the main thing now in this process is the use of technology, certainly. And certainly Egypt here now is taking the experience of a lot of multinational, international companies in order to apply the green economy.
Right. Of course, when we talk about green economy, this should not be words, only words. I mean, there has to, or there have to be steps to be taken. There has to be awareness campaigns to be spread. There has to be memorandums of understanding to be signed, and also laws to be implemented, and lots of steps that should be taken seriously to enforce laws or to enforce countries, especially the developed countries, to respect the laws of environment, to respect the rights of the environment, and not to throw the waste in the oceans, and not to and to take heed of carbon emission. And I mean, most of the industrial countries, they throw all their waste or get their leftover into the developing countries. So
Well,
from
that is
your own
very
point
good.
of view, how can this be implemented?
That's a very important point that you have just mentioned. Unfortunately, you see, when we have a lot of conferences, you see, there are a lot of recommendations which come out and all that. But unfortunately, when the conference is over, everything goes back to square one, and there's no plan to implement the recommendations which are taken in in a certain conference. What I recommend actually is having a steering committee that will be emerged from the conference, you see, in order to put an action plan, in order to put the steps, as you just mentioned now, what should be done in order to apply the green economy. And certainly this will, actually when you start such a project, probably you'll be facing challenges, you'll be facing problems. So certainly this steering committee will have the authority to eliminate any obstacles which might occur in the implementation phase. It's very important to have an action plan done by the steering committee. Taking the conduct, certainly based on the recommendations that came out from the conference.
When we talk about green economy, you cannot talk about it to implement it. We cannot implement it alone. It's part and parcel of a whole package that is related to the environment, to the ecosystem, to the biological balance, respecting the endangered species, the hierarchy of the wildlife, and also the total environment around us. I mean, awareness campaigns should be also inserted inside that packages. I mean, lots of other elements. So when we talk about green economy alone, this should be understood that nothing is going to be executed if we only talk about green economy alone. So if you need to elaborate.
Definitely, that's very, very important. And certainly a very important point is that we should create awareness of the dangers of not having the green economy, and the dangers of using traditional methods, you see, that caused all these disasters. You see, so there should be awareness, especially with the countries which are not, you see, very much, you see, based. They live on tradition, you see, and do not accept change quickly. So
exactly.
they do not adapt to change. This is very important to create awareness about the dangers of not having, of using the traditional methods. This is very, very important. And then there should be certainly change in the behavior of the citizens. As you mentioned, the waste. It's not only the waste which is thrown from by industry. A lot of, you see, if you look here in Egypt here, unfortunately, a lot of people...
It should be a state of mind.
Yes, exactly.
But at the same time, since you said that the problem of implementing these recommendations and also complying with the regulations that are going to be set seriously, and maybe also implementing rules, effecting new rules, all that. Speaking about industrial countries and I mean economic entities and economic powers like China, for example, taking China as the huge example for countries, industrial countries who might have little respect for the environment and for violating the rules of wildlife and committing crimes against the ecosystem and the biological balance, and what happened in the Wuhan province that affected in COVID and pandemics, and what is being taken in Yulin province also, consuming the endangered species, lots of environmental crimes. So is China attending? And at the same time, if a country is not attending that particular conference, will it going to be enforced to respect the law?
Well, this is a very important point. Probably what I suggest that there should be a law worldwide that will put sanctions and will put penalties on countries which do not respect the recommendations in order to save our environment. Because as you said, probably maybe a lot of countries probably as they be attending and then everything goes back to square one again. So in order to have an implementation plan,
that's the problem.
We should have penalties. You see, it's as if you make a mistake, you are subject to a penalty. You see, that's very simple, and this should be probably made through the United Nations or for an international organization, which is going to put some sanctions and put some penalties on countries which do not respect the recommendations.
Right. Are we talking penalties or are we talking sanctions? Because penalties are not enough for a huge economic power like, I don't want to mention a country by name, but huge economic powers, if you implement penalties, maybe it's not going to be executed, but if you impose sanctions, like in the case of nuclear waste or the misuse of nuclear power, for example, sanctions would be the best solution.
Yes, no, I think we could apply both, you see, sanctions and penalties, so this will be very, very effective.
We have tried so many times the power of international community. Sometimes it is biased, sometimes it is not affecting powerful enough to punish countries that are violating the rules, any rules, and probably the recommendations that would come out might not be affected the way we are expecting it to be. So is there any other solution?
That's why I suggested to have a steering committee, you see, to put an action plan and apply the recommendations. And certainly, as I mentioned also, there will be obstacles. As the one you just mentioned, countries will not be following the regulations and not following the recommendations. So probably we should have apply strict sanctions on these countries who do not follow up the rules, you see.
We all know that there are some huge companies that include in their industries toxic elements, probably in some cosmetics, in some food maybe, and and also in clothing and other industries. So looking over or surveying these particular issues or problems of industry that is going to impose some hazard somehow on humanity is going to be of a threat to those huge companies. So in that case, what is going to happen?
Well, again, is certainly these here what we can do is change the technology itself that is used in the factory or in this industry. Certainly, there are a lot of new methods, you see, in industrial concerns that prevent or minimize the pollution, you see. So, and I think in a lot of European countries now are following all this. So probably the answer to that is using new technologies in industries in order to reduce or eliminate pollution.
Right. When we talk about green economy, you also should talk about renewable energy. And we should talk about the cleanest type of industry. We should talk about too many elements that are related to green economy. Do you think that with this, I mean, with the economic crisis that is overwhelming the whole world, this is going to be possible? Because this is, I mean, affecting this type of life might be a little bit costly. So, do you think the world is going to find some difficulties, or some countries are going to stumble, try to achieve that particular, I mean, way to stand up to the climate changes?
Well, actually, that's an important point. Also, is here as you mentioned, we have a worldwide economic crisis, and probably certain countries will not be able to finance. I suggest that there should be an organization, international organization, which would provide funds to certain countries in order, and also not also only funds, and provide the know-how and the methodology in order to apply all these recommendations. Because probably not only there be a lack of finance, there be a lack of know-how for certain countries in order to apply what was said in these recommendations. So probably an international organization like the IMF or the World Bank could assist in financing countries which are not able to finance or to bear the costs of changing their methodology in this respect.
Right. But also, when we talk about standing up to the climate change and affecting green economy, and I mean, trying to affect also the usage of renewable energy and the means to do that. By the way, renewable energy is very costly and would take us, I mean, not only us, but other countries in Africa, would take them years to be able to effect a total free country, or a country that is totally depending on renewable energy. But at the same time, we should also have to put in consideration that this is also have to be related or linked with awareness campaigns, the role of media and the role of the press and the media outlets everywhere, and also the educating the new generations to be environmentally aware and keen on the environment.
Also, I'd like to add something about just what you mentioned now, is the culture of certain countries. You see, the culture of certain countries, which do not, it's very difficult to change. So as you mentioned, as we said just now, through the media and through communication, we should create awareness about the dangers of applying traditional methods. You see, again, certainly in certain countries, changing tradition will take some time. Well, I think if we use the step-by-step approach, we could reach quite satisfactory results, which are not, because sometimes some certain countries will be resisting change. They'll be resistant to change. This is normal. So certainly creating awareness and having the role of the media, and probably creating, as I mentioned, seeing the dangers of not changing the methodology would be a very important strategy in order to, which it will take some time probably, because certainly change doesn't come in these countries in a fortnight. So certainly it will take some time, and it should be by step, you see, slowly but surely. It will take maybe more time in certain countries than other countries, as I mentioned, because of the factors we just mentioned now.
Right. Dr. Mustafa Tammam, our economic analyst, would like to thank you so much talking to The Breakfast Show. And we're going to go to a short break, and we'll come to continue The Breakfast Show, so stay with us.